The small town of Millersville had always carried the soft, predictable rhythm of life. Streets were lined with maple trees whose leaves rustled gently in the afternoon breeze. Children biked along cracked sidewalks, waving at neighbors, while the scent of fresh bread from the corner bakery mingled with the earthy aroma of damp grass. Life moved slowly, uneventfully, until that particular Thursday afternoon. A father and his daughter wandered down the sidewalk, hand in hand. The girl, Emily, no more than 8, skipped lightly over the uneven pavement, her golden curls bouncing with every step. Her wide, hazel eyes sparkled with curiosity, capturing everything, the way sunlight shimmered off the windows of the police station, the flash of a squirrel darting up a tree, the distant echo of a siren. But what held her gaze most was the fenced-off police K-9 training yard. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging at his hand with a gentle but insistent force. Her voice was soft, almost fragile, yet it carried a gravity that made her father pause. He followed her line of sight. There, in the center of the yard, was a massive German shepherd. His coat was a dark mix of black and tan, sleek yet bristling with barely contained energy. His posture was alert, muscles coiled as if ready to spring into motion at a second's notice. But it wasn't just his size or power that drew Emily's attention, it was the intelligence in his eyes, the way they seemed to flicker with understanding. "Can I buy the police dog, Daddy?" she asked quietly, almost reverently. Her father froze, unsure whether to laugh, correct her, or shush her. Buying a police dog wasn't like picking out a puppy from a pet store. And yet, something about the look on Emily's face made him hesitate. There was hope there, longing, a quiet insistence that made him swallow hard. Before he could respond, the officer overseeing the yard noticed them. Officer Daniels, a man in his late 30s with sharp features and a posture honed by years of service, walked toward the fence. His gaze immediately fell on the dog, and then he froze. A cold shiver ran down his spine. He had seen many K-9s come and go, but this dog was different. Something about him, a certain intensity in his stare, made Daniels feel a pang of unease he hadn't experienced in years. His hand twitched instinctively toward his radio, though he wasn't sure why. Emily stepped closer to the fence, tiny fingers curling around the metal bars. "Hi, boy," she said softly. The words were innocent, almost melodic, but they seemed to echo in the yard like a secret code. The German shepherd's head tilted, ears pricked. He sniffed the air, and then, without warning, he barked once, low, controlled, intentional. He wasn't warning, and he wasn't aggressive. He was communicating, and he was looking at Emily as if he had been waiting his entire life for her. Daniel's eyes widened. This was the dog he had known in another life, the one who had survived missions most people couldn't imagine, the one that had been retired early after a dangerous incident overseas. Memories Daniel had buried deep came rushing back, a night of smoke and fire, the chaos of a failed operation, the way the dog had saved lives when everyone else thought he would fail. Emily didn't flinch at the bark. She only smiled, tilting her head in curiosity. The innocence in her expression contrasted sharply with the dog's trained intensity. It was as if an unspoken understanding passed between them in that single heartbeat. Daniel stepped closer, heart hammering, unsure whether to intervene or step back. The dog's gaze never left Emily. There was something almost human in it, a recognition, a judgment, a promise. And then, the dog barked again, louder this time, and shifted his massive frame slightly forward. Muscles tense, eyes burning. Emily's father felt a chill. "Emily, maybe we should go," he said, his voice trembling slightly. But Emily shook her head. "No, Daddy, he's different." Daniel swallowed hard, sensing a storm about to break. He had trained dogs for years, and he had never seen one react this way to a civilian, especially a child. His mind raced. Retired early, unpredictable tendencies, high-stress mission experience. And yet, this dog wasn't aggressive. Not exactly. He was waiting, watching, assessing, calculating. Then, without warning, Rex, because Daniels knew his name, let out a deep growl from the corner of his throat. Not at Emily, not yet, but toward the shadows at the edge of the yard, where the sunlight barely reached the grass. The hairs on the back of Daniel's neck stood on end. Something or someone was approaching, and whatever it was, Rex had noticed it before anyone else. Emily tilted her head again, unaware of the tension coiling in the air. "He's smiling at me, Daddy," she whispered. Daniels didn't reply. He couldn't. All he could do was watch as the dog's eyes locked on her. And he knew, with a certainty that made his stomach twist, that this encounter was just the beginning of something far bigger and far more dangerous than anyone in Millersville could imagine. The wind rustled through the trees, and then a low, deliberate growl echoed from the edge of the yard. Officer Daniel's heart pounded as he watched the little girl interact with Rex, the retired police dog. He had seen many dogs in his career, trained them, bonded with them, but never one like this. There was an intelligence in Rex's eyes that went beyond instinct or obedience. It was almost human, and right now, that intelligence was locked entirely on Emily, as though he recognized something in her that nobody else could see. Daniels took a cautious step closer, scanning the yard. Something about the way Rex shifted, muscles taut and ears pricked, made his stomach tighten. This wasn't just curiosity. This was calculation. Years of high-risk operations flooded his mind, missions in which Rex had been deployed. Missions that had ended in chaos and near tragedy. He had buried those memories long ago, hoping they would never surface. But now, seeing Rex here, calm but alert, all those memories came rushing back. Rex had a past most people would never understand. He had been part of a top-tier K-9 unit, trained for tactical operations overseas. He had sniffed out explosives, apprehended armed suspects, and saved the lives of countless soldiers. But one mission had changed everything. During a classified operation, Rex had been injured, burned, scarred, and shaken to his core. The incident had left him unpredictable, his sharp instincts sometimes bordering on dangerous. He was retired early, removed from the field, and placed in the police department's training yard to live out his days away from danger. Daniel's eyes flicked to Emily's father, a tall man with broad shoulders, his expression a mixture of pride and hesitation. "Sir, you need to understand," Daniel said carefully, keeping his voice low. "This isn't a dog you can just take home. He's not a pet. He sees different." Emily's father frowned, glancing at the massive German shepherd, whose gaze had not left his daughter. I know he's a police dog," he said slowly, "but she connects with him. I've never seen her like this before." Daniel swallowed hard, the memories gnawing at him. "It's more than connection," he said, voice tight. "Rex, he's been through things most people can't imagine, and he doesn't forget. He doesn't forgive. And right now, he's focused on her. That's unusual." Emily tilted her head, her eyes wide, and reached through the fence again. "Hi, boy. Don't be scared," she whispered. Her voice was gentle, filled with warmth and curiosity, the kind of voice that could calm even the most troubled heart. Rex hesitated for a heartbeat, then slowly lowered his massive head to meet her hand. His nose brushed against her fingers, and for a moment, he simply stood there, breathing slowly. Then, almost imperceptibly, his ears twitched toward the tree line at the edge of the yard. Daniels followed the movement, heart hammering. Something was coming. Someone. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. He had trained himself to remain calm under pressure, but this was different. He felt a cold, familiar dread creeping into his chest. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of leather, sweat, and something else. Danger. Rex stiffened, a low growl vibrating in his throat. Not at Emily. Not yet. But the air around them seemed to tighten, almost constricting, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Emily's father noticed the change, a flicker of unease crossing his face. "Daniels, what is it?" Daniels didn't answer. He didn't need to. Rex's body was a living warning. Every muscle, every hair, every sharp glance screamed alert. This dog had survived missions that had killed men twice his size. And now, standing between Emily and the unknown, he was ready. The girl, however, remained calm. She tilted her head and whispered, "It's okay, boy. I won't let anything hurt you." The words hung in the air, strangely potent. Daniels felt an almost impossible sensation, a mixture of awe and fear. Rex's tail flicked once, then he sat, keeping his eyes fixed on the shadowy edge of the yard. It was as if he understood Emily's promise and, in return, was preparing to protect her at any cost. Daniel's gaze darted between the dog and the trees. A movement caught his eye, a faint rustling, quick and deliberate. His instinct screamed danger. Someone was out there. Someone dangerous. And Rex knew it. Emily, oblivious to the tension rising around her, smiled softly at the dog. "We'll be okay," she whispered again. Daniels clenched his fists, a knot of anxiety tightening in his chest. He had dealt with threats before, armed criminals, hostile suspects, and life-or-death missions, but there was something about this moment that felt Different, personal, immediate, unpredictable. Then, a shadow emerged from the tree line. A figure, moving with intent, eyes fixed on the yard. And in that moment, Daniels knew with chilling certainty, whatever was coming, it wasn't just danger. It was the past coming to claim its due, and Rex was ready to answer. Emily crouched slightly, her small hands gripping the cold metal bars of the fence. Her eyes never leaving Rex. The massive German shepherd had inched closer, slow and deliberate, every muscle taut as a coiled spring. His eyes, dark and intelligent, studied her with a focus that went beyond instinct. Daniel stood a few steps back, his heart hammering, unsure whether to intervene or simply watch. He had trained dogs for years, but this was unlike anything he had ever seen. Emily whispered again, her voice soft and melodic. "It's okay, boy. You can trust me." The words seemed to have an almost magical effect. Rex lowered his massive head slowly, letting the tip of his wet nose brush against her fingers. Emily's eyes lit up, a grin spreading across her face. "You're so big. But you're nice, aren't you?" Rex sat back on his haunches for a moment, tail wagging slightly, his body relaxing just enough to show a hint of trust. But then, as if sensing something invisible, his ears pricked up, and a low growl rolled from his throat, not at Emily, but at the shadows beyond the fence. Daniels followed Rex's gaze, scanning the edge of the yard. The trees swayed gently, in the wind, yet there was something deliberate in the movement, a subtle crunch of leaves that didn't belong. His instincts screamed at him something was coming. Emily noticed the tension in the air and looked up at her father. "Daddy, is he scared?" she asked, her voice a mixture of curiosity and concern. "No, honey," her father said cautiously, though his hands were tense. "He's just alert." But Daniels knew better. He had seen that posture before in K9 South during high-stakes operations, muscles coiled, eyes sharp, ready to spring. This wasn't casual alertness. Rex was preparing for action. Emily reached through the fence again, this time placing both hands on the dog's broad muzzle. "It's okay. I won't let anything hurt you," she whispered. Her words, calm and unwavering, seemed to resonate with the dog. Rex's growl softened, and he leaned into her hands, a subtle acknowledgement of trust. Daniel swallowed hard. "I've never seen a dog respond to someone like this," he muttered under his breath. "And she's just a little girl." A sudden rustle in the trees snapped Daniel's attention back to the shadows. Movement, calculated, slow, but undeniably purposeful. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end. "Stay close," he whispered to Emily's father, his voice tight with tension. Rex's ears twitched. His body shifted slightly, placing himself directly between Emily and the tree line. The massive dog was silent, a wall of muscles and instinct, yet every movement screamed readiness. Emily noticed his shift and tilted her head. "He's protecting me, isn't he?" "Yes," Daniel said, voice barely above a whisper. "That's exactly what he's doing." The little girl didn't flinch, didn't back away. Instead, she placed a gentle hand on Rex's neck. "It's okay, boy, I'm not scared." Her calmness was extraordinary, almost defiant. Rex's ears swiveled, scanning the edge of the yard. Then, without warning, he barked sharply, a single, commanding bark that echoed like a warning through the empty street. The rustling stopped, a shadow shifted, and Daniel's stomach dropped. Whoever or whatever was out there had heard Rex's warning. Emily gasped slightly, but her smile remained. "Good boy," she whispered, stroking the dog's fur. Daniels felt a chill. This wasn't just a connection between a girl and a dog. This was something deeper, something almost instinctual. Rex wasn't just sensing danger. He was assessing Emily, reading her emotions, determining whether she was part of his pack or a threat. Then, movement. The shadow at the tree line became a figure, stepping forward into the fading light. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, and his eyes glinted with something familiar, a dangerous familiarity that sent a shiver down Daniel's spine. Rex tensed further, a low growl vibrating through his massive chest. Emily didn't move. She only whispered, "It's okay. You're not going to hurt me, are you?" The figure stopped, eyes locked on the dog and the girl. Daniels felt a surge of recognition and dread. The man's presence wasn't random. He was here for a reason that tied back to Rex's past. A past filled with missions, danger, and lives hanging by a thread. Rex took a single step forward, muscles coiled and ready. His gaze never left the figure. And Emily, still crouched by the fence, looked up at the dog, her small face determined. "We're okay," she whispered again. Daniels clenched his fists. He knew that what happened next could change everything. The connection between this little girl and a retired police dog had unlocked something powerful. But whether it would protect them or draw them into danger, he couldn't yet say. And then, as the figure took another step closer, Rex barked again, louder, sharper, and more commanding than before. The tension snapped. Everyone froze. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move. The shadowy figure stepped out from the tree line, his movements deliberate, almost predatory. Sunlight glinted off the metal buckle of a tactical belt slung low on his hips. The man's eyes were cold, calculating, and Daniel's stomach sank with recognition. He had seen that look before, a look that promised trouble, danger, and a reckoning long overdue. Rex's body tensed further. His growl deepened, reverberating like a warning through the air. The massive dog planted himself squarely between Emily and the approaching man, tail stiff, ears pricked, eyes unblinking. He wasn't just guarding the little girl, he was making a statement. Any threat would have to go through him first. Emily didn't flinch. She clutched her father's hand tightly, but her eyes remained fixed on Rex. "It's okay, boy," she whispered softly. "We'll be all right." Her voice was calm, soothing. It carried a strength that made Daniel's chest tighten. There was a confidence in her, an almost uncanny ability to remain steady even in the face of danger. The man stopped a few yards from the fence, taking in the scene. His lips twisted into a cold, knowing smile. "So, this is the one who survived," he said, his voice low, with a dangerous edge. "I was beginning to think no one made it out." Daniel stepped in front of Emily instinctively, heart pounding. "Who are you?" he demanded, but the man ignored him, eyes locked on Rex. He didn't seem concerned with the girl, only the dog. Rex growled, a low, warning rumble that made the man's smile falter slightly. The dog's posture radiated controlled, power, pure readiness. Daniels had seen Rex in combat zones, facing armed suspects and explosive threats. But even he couldn't fully predict what Rex would do next. Emily's father tightened his grip on her hand, fear rising in his chest. "Daniels, should we call the police?" he whispered. But Daniels shook his head. "This isn't something the police handle," he said grimly. "Not anymore." The man took a step forward, and Rex growled louder, hackles raised. His sharp bark cracked through the afternoon stillness, a warning, a challenge. Emily instinctively stepped closer to Rex, brushing a hand over his massive head. The dog leaned into her touch, as if drawing strength from her calm presence. The man's eyes narrowed. He seemed to hesitate, as though realizing that this was no ordinary dog. Years of experience with K9 units, years of tracking, training, and controlling, had never prepared him for this. Rex didn't just obey commands, he assessed, calculated, and acted with a mind of his own. Suddenly, the man moved faster, lunging toward the fence. But Rex reacted instantly, leaping with surprising agility for his size. Positioning himself between the man and Emily, his bark was deafening, commanding, and authoritative. The man stumbled slightly, taken aback by the dog's sheer presence and timing. Emily gasped, but she did not panic. "It's okay," she whispered again, as if reassuring Rex as much as herself. "We're safe, right?" Daniel's mind raced. He recognized the man immediately. It was the very person responsible for Rex's early retirement. The one who had almost ended the dog's career. The one whose reckless actions had left a scar on Rex's face and a shadow over Daniel's conscience. The man had come for Rex and possibly for the girl, though Daniels didn't yet understand why. Rex's tail flicked once, signaling readiness, his eyes locked on the man, unblinking, calculating. Poised to act, every muscle in his body screamed tension, precision, and lethal capability. Emily's calmness and trust gave him focus. She was the anchor in the storm, and Rex was her shield. The man cursed under his breath and reached for something at his belt, a weapon. Daniels realized with horror. Time seemed to stretch. Emily's father instinctively stepped forward to shield her. But Rex's growl deepened, warning him to stay back. The dog wasn't just protecting Emily physically, he was asserting control over the situation. Then, in a split second, the man froze. Rex barked again, louder and sharper this time. Each bark like a command. The figure hesitated, eyes darting, nervously, as if remembering all the failed missions, the chaos, and the moments Rex had survived where others hadn't. The dog wasn't just a retired K9. He was a force shaped by danger, experience, and loyalty. Emily's gaze met Rex's, unwavering and confident. "We're okay," she whispered, her voice calm, steady, and strangely commanding. Rex growled low but approvingly, sensing her bravery. Daniels clenched his fists. He knew that the figure could not intimidate Rex or Emily, but the question remained. How far would the man go, and what danger was lurking beyond the edge of the yard? Waiting for the right moment to strike, the afternoon air hung thick with tension, each heartbeat echoing the unspoken truth. The threat had arrived, the past had returned, and the next move could change everything. The man froze mid-step, the shadow of a cold, cruel smile still lingering on his face. His eyes, dark and calculating, never left Rex. Daniels felt the old, familiar dread curl in his stomach, the same feeling he had experienced years ago during a mission that had gone catastrophically wrong. He knew that look. That man was dangerous, calculated, and he knew Rex intimately. Rex didn't move a muscle, only growled low, every note a warning, every fiber of his body coiled like a spring. His gaze locked on the man, unyielding and precise. Emily, crouched beside the fence, glanced at Rex, instinctively sensing the tension. "It's okay, boy," she whispered, her small hand brushing his massive neck. "I'm not scared." Daniel's chest tightened. He had trained dogs to handle stress, danger, and life-threatening situations, but this was different. Rex wasn't responding to commands or obedience. He was assessing, strategizing, and preparing for what was to come. Then, the man spoke again, his voice low and dangerous. "I should have finished this years ago," he muttered. Daniel's pulse quickened. That mission, the one that had forced Rex into early retirement, had been a nightmare, etched into his memory. A high-stakes operation overseas, explosives scattered in a narrow village alley, civilians caught in crossfire, and Rex had saved lives that should have been lost. But the man standing before him had almost ended everything that night. Emily's father stepped protectively in front of her, eyes wide with fear. "What do you want?" he demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. The man's eyes glinted. "Him," he said, nodding toward Rex, "and anyone who's foolish enough to think they can control him." Daniel's jaw tightened. He recognized that arrogance, the same arrogance that had led to failure years ago. "You're insane if you think a little girl is involved in this," he spat. "And Rex isn't yours to take." Rex growled again, low and guttural. He stepped slightly forward, his massive frame a moving barrier between Emily and the intruder. The dog's stare was unwavering, almost human in its intensity, and for the first time, Daniels realized something he hadn't before. Rex wasn't just protecting Emily. He was waiting for this exact moment, the moment when the past would try to collide with the present. The man's expression faltered. He had anticipated hesitation, fear, or panic, but not the calm, fearless trust between the girl and the dog. Emily crouched lower, her hand firm on Rex's thick neck, her voice steady. "We're okay," she said softly, yet firmly. Rex's tail flicked once, his muscles relaxing minutely, as if acknowledging the girl's courage. The man's eyes narrowed. He remembered the night that had scarred Rex, the failed mission, the fire, the chaos, and he knew the dog had changed since then. He was no longer the same K9 that had hesitated under stress. He was sharper, smarter, and unpredictable. Daniels felt a cold sweat run down his spine. He had never seen Rex like this, focused, almost strategic. And now, in the presence of the man who had once threatened him and countless others, Rex was ready to act. Emily's father glanced from the dog to the intruder, fear and awe mingling in his eyes. "Daniels, what is he planning?" Daniels shook his head, unwilling to voice the truth. He only knew this: Rex had survived missions that had killed trained soldiers. This man, dangerous as he was, underestimated one thing: Rex's instinct, loyalty, and intelligence. The intruder's hand twitched near his belt, and Daniels tensed, ready to intervene. But before anyone could move, Rex barked a single, commanding bark that cut through the quiet like thunder. The dog's gaze was sharp, unyielding, and terrifyingly deliberate. The man froze mid-motion. His lips parted, then closed as he realized Rex wasn't just reacting, he was anticipating. Every instinct honed through years of training told him this dog wasn't afraid. This dog wasn't just a retired K9. This dog had survived death itself. Emily tilted her head, eyes wide. "He knows you're scared," she whispered, speaking more to Rex than anyone else. The dog's ears twitched. His growl softened, but the tension in his body remained. A coiled promise that danger would be met head-on. Daniels exhaled slowly, realizing the impossible. The bond between this little girl and Rex had changed everything. The dog was no longer just a survivor. He was a protector, and he would do whatever it took to defend Emily. The man's confidence wavered, just slightly. He took a step back, reassessing, calculating the risk. But Daniels knew it wouldn't be enough. Rex had learned from the past, and the past had just arrived, standing in front of them, underestimating the bond that had formed between an extraordinary dog and an extraordinary child. The afternoon air thickened with tension. Every heartbeat echoed like a drum of war. The shadow of the man, the unwavering stance of Rex, and the fearless trust of Emily combined into a silent standoff. And in that silence, Daniels realized this was only the beginning. From the edge of the yard, a low rustle came from the trees. Another presence, unseen, yet undeniably watching, waiting. The threat was not fully revealed, and as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the yard, the truth became chillingly clear. What had begun as a quiet afternoon in Millersville was about to erupt into something far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. The afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long, jagged shadows across the yard. Every rustle in the tree line, every sway of the branches seemed magnified in the tense silence. Emily's small hand remained on Rex's massive neck, her eyes steady, her body calm, and Daniels couldn't stop the chill creeping up his spine. Something about this moment felt like the calm before a storm, and he knew instinctively that the storm was about to hit. The man's expression darkened, his jaw tightening as he studied Rex. "You've changed," he muttered, almost to himself. "I should have known you'd survive, but I didn't expect this." Rex growled low in his chest, a sound that vibrated through the yard like a warning. Every muscle was coiled, his ears pricked, his dark eyes locked on the man's every movement. He wasn't just ready, he was precise, calculating, anticipating the threat before it could even move. Emily whispered softly, "It's okay, boy. We're together." The words, innocent yet commanding, seemed to anchor Rex's focus. He leaned into her touch, drawing strength from her fearlessness. Daniels felt his own heart tighten. He had seen Rex perform miracles in combat zones, but he had never seen the dog act with such devotion to a human who was not trained, not hardened, not even fully aware of the danger around her. The man shifted, drawing a small weapon from his belt. Daniel's hand went to his radio, but he knew it was already delayed. This was no ordinary intruder. This was a trained professional, and every second counted. Rex barked sharp, commanding, and filled with authority. The sound echoed across the yard, startling birds into the sky. The man froze mid-motion, his eyes flicking between the dog and the girl. The realization hit him. Rex was not afraid, and this child was no ordinary human companion. Emily crouched lower, speaking to the dog in a calm, deliberate tone. "We're okay. You've got this." Her words carried an almost impossible confidence, and Rex, as if understanding, let out a low growl, his posture unwavering, his presence a living shield between the girl and danger. Then the man lunged forward, quick, calculated, but Rex anticipated every movement, with a fluid motion that belied his massive size. He stepped directly in the man's path, growling, teeth bared, muscles taut. The man stumbled slightly, surprised by the dog's speed and precision. Daniel's father instinctively stepped in front of Emily, but Rex shifted slightly, nudging the girl behind him. The dog's eyes never left the intruder. His growl deepened, warning that any misstep would trigger a response far beyond ordinary aggression. "You don't belong here," Daniels shouted, his voice firm, trying to keep authority over the chaos. But he knew the man was beyond reason. The man glared at Daniels, then at Rex. He assessed, calculated, and lunged again, but this time, Rex reacted with breathtaking speed. The dog spun to the side, creating a barrier between the intruder and Emily in one fluid motion. He forced the man off balance, pinning him against the fence. Emily's father gasped, clutching her hand, but she remained calm, trusting Rex entirely. "It's okay, boy. Just keep him away," she whispered, her voice steady as stone. Rex barked again, sharp and commanding, his massive body rigid, every movement controlled. The intruder struggled, realizing he was no match for a dog who had survived life or death missions overseas and was now protecting a fearless child. The realization dawned on him. Rex had not only survived the past, but had evolved. He was sharper, smarter, and utterly loyal to Emily. Daniels took a step forward, trying to assess the situation, but he couldn't look away from the bond forming before him. Emily and Rex had created a connection that transcended logic, fear, and even years of training. It was instinctual, unspoken, and terrifyingly effective. The intruder cursed under his breath, attempting one last push, but Rex shifted slightly, forcing him to the ground. His massive paw pressed subtly, controlled enough to warn, enough to dominate. Emily whispered again, "We're okay. He's ours now." A sudden rustle in the tree line reminded Daniels that this confrontation might not be over. The danger was immediate, but the threat could have accomplices or another layer they hadn't yet detected. Rex remained unwavering, massive head lowered, ears pricked, eyes blazing with controlled fury. And in that tense, electric silence, it was clear the dog would not let anything harm Emily. Not now, not ever. The man on the ground glared up, fury and fear mingling in his eyes, knowing the battle was lost. He had underestimated a dog, underestimated a child, underestimated the bond that had formed between them. Daniels exhaled slowly, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Emily's hand stayed on Rex, calm, steady, confident, and for the first time that afternoon, Daniels allowed himself a glimmer of hope. They were not just surviving, they were together, and together they were untouchable. But the wind rustled again, a whisper through the trees. Another presence lingered, unseen yet undeniably watching. The danger was not over. The past had arrived, but it had yet to fully reveal itself. And in that moment, Daniels realized something chilling. The real test was just beginning. The intruder scrambled to his feet, his eyes darting wildly between Rex and the little girl. He had underestimated the dog, underestimated the bond between Emily and Rex. And now he realized just how fatal that miscalculation had been. Every instinct screamed at him to retreat, to vanish into the shadows before the dog could strike again. Rex didn't move. He remained the perfect sentinel, chest heaving slightly, ears pricked, eyes blazing with alert focus. Emily's small hand rested on his neck, calm and steady, grounding him. She whispered softly, "It's okay. You can go now." The words weren't just comforting, they carried authority. The quiet command of someone who had earned trust, not demanded it. The intruder hesitated, then cursed under his breath. He turned and bolted toward the edge of the tree line, branches snapping beneath his feet. Daniel's pulse raced. He instinctively wanted to pursue, to stop the man, but he knew the dog had already assessed the risk. Rex remained still, watching the retreating figure, muscles coiled as if waiting for a potential return. Emily's father pulled her close, wrapping an arm around her small shoulders. Are you okay?" he asked, his voice trembling with relief and lingering fear. Emily nodded, her eyes still bright, but serious. "He won't hurt us," she said. "Rex won't let him." Daniels exhaled slowly, running a hand over his face. He had trained dogs to protect, to fight, to anticipate danger, but he had never seen anything like this. A child had somehow forged a bond with a dog that made him more than a protector. He was a partner, a shield, and a silent warrior. Rex's ears twitched as he scanned the surrounding area, making sure the threat had truly passed. His body relaxed slightly, but his eyes never lost their sharpness. The past had arrived in the form of that man, but Rex had met it head-on and now, standing vigilant, he sent a clear message. Any attempt to return would be met with overwhelming force. Emily crouched beside him, her hand brushing along his thick fur. "You're amazing," she whispered. Daniels watched, awed, as the dog leaned into her touch. It was more than affection, it was recognition, a silent bond that spoke louder than words. Her father shook his head, still catching his breath. "I don't understand. How could a child?" Daniels cut him off. "It's not just a child," he said, voice low. "Emily has something extraordinary. Calmness, courage, instinct. And Rex recognizes it. He's not just a dog anymore. He's her protector in every sense." Emily's small face turned up toward Daniels. "He knew what to do," she said simply, as though it was obvious. "He always knows." The officer swallowed, realizing the truth. Rex had not just reacted. He had planned, anticipated, and executed. The bond between them was something rare, almost impossible, something that could not be broken by fear or danger. But even as the tension ebbed, the unease lingered. The intruder had fled, yes, but Daniels knew the past rarely stayed buried. Someone like him didn't simply disappear after being thwarted. The danger was only paused, biding its time. Emily's father finally broke the silence. "So, what happens now? Can we keep him?" His voice was hesitant, unsure, as though asking for permission from fate itself. Daniels knelt beside Rex, running a hand along the dog's scarred muzzle. "I don't know if the rules allow it," he said carefully, "but some bonds, some heroes, don't belong in kennels. Rex, he's found someone worth protecting, and that bond changes everything." Emily's eyes lit up. "Really?" she whispered, hope threading through her words. Daniel smiled faintly. "I think so," he said. "But you need to know something. This isn't over. Whoever that man is, he'll be back, and when he is, Rex will be ready. And so will you." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it an ominous whisper. A faint rustle came from deeper in the woods, almost imperceptible, yet impossible to ignore. Rex stiffened again, ears pricked, eyes scanning the shadows. Emily's small hand rested on him, steadying herself, steadying him. Her father shivered. "He's watching," he said, more to himself than anyone else. Daniels nodded, his jaw tight. "Yes, and we'll be ready. But for now, we stay close, we stay alert, and we trust each other." Emily tilted her head, brushing her fingers along Rex's fur. "He saved us," she whispered. "He's ours now, and no one can hurt us." Daniels allowed himself a small, cautious breath. The danger had passed for now, but the truth was undeniable. This was only the beginning. The past had returned, Rex had faced it, and the bond between a little girl and a retired police dog had forged a force unlike any other. And somewhere, hidden in the shadows of the tree line, the intruder paused, catching his breath, eyes narrowing. The score was not yet settled. The hunt was far from over. As the sun sank lower, casting the yard in deep, golden shadows, one truth became chillingly clear: Rex, Emily, and anyone who stood with them had just survived the first chapter of a far more dangerous story. The yard had fallen into a heavy silence, broken only by the soft rustle of leaves and the faint thud of Emily's small sneakers on the pavement as she paced near Rex. The dog lay close to her, ears still alert, eyes never leaving the tree line even as the shadows lengthened under the setting sun. There was a calmness now, but it was the kind that precedes storms of fragile peace. Tense with the memory of danger, Emily's father finally exhaled, slumping against the fence. "I can't believe what just happened," he murmured, shaking his head. "That man, he knew Rex. He knew him, and he still underestimated him." Daniels nodded grimly. "That's what makes Rex different. He's seen things, been through things most humans can't even imagine, and he survived. More than survived, he adapted. And now, he's protecting her." Emily crouched beside Rex, brushing her hand over his thick, scarred fur. "You are amazing," she whispered. "I knew you'd keep us safe." Rex shifted slightly, leaning into her touch, his massive head resting on her shoulder. There was no need for words. His presence spoke volumes: trust, loyalty, and unwavering protection. Daniel's gaze swept the yard and then back to Emily. She was small, fragile in body, but in that moment she carried a courage that belied her years, and Rex had recognized it. Together, they formed a bond stronger than fear, stronger than training, stronger than anything Daniels had witnessed in his career. Her father knelt beside her, eyes full of awe. "Do you understand what just happened?" he asked softly. "That dog, he didn't just save us. He made a choice, and he chose you." Emily nodded, her small face serious. "I know, and I'll never let him go. He's my friend, my protector, and I think he knew I needed him." Daniels allowed himself a small smile, though his mind remained sharp with the echo of danger. The intruder had fled for now, but he hadn't vanished completely. Someone with that kind of skill, that kind of obsession, doesn't simply disappear. The threat lingered, invisible, but potent. And Daniels knew that the past Rex had survived might one day return with a vengeance. But for now, there was a fragile victory. Emily had proven herself brave beyond her years, and Rex had reaffirmed his place as not just a survivor, but a guardian. Their bond was a force unlike any other, and for the first time that afternoon, Daniels allowed himself to believe that they could face whatever came next together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the yard was bathed in long golden shadows. The quiet was deep, almost reverent, broken only by the distant hum of a passing car and the occasional rustle in the trees. Yet even in the calm, Daniels remained vigilant, eyes scanning every movement. Emily whispered to Rex again, her voice calm but resolute. "We're going to be okay, you and me, together." Rex's ears twitched, his dark eyes glinting in the fading light. A silent promise that he would always be there. Daniel's father hugged Emily tightly, finally allowing a tremor of relief to escape. "You were amazing, Pumpkin," he said softly, "braver than anyone I've ever known." Emily looked up at him, then at Daniels. "It's not just me," she said firmly. "It's Rex. He's the bravest one of all. I just know how to talk to him." Daniels shook his head in disbelief. He had witnessed courage, loyalty, and intelligence many times before, but never in such a combination, never so pure, never so instinctual. There was something extraordinary here, a retired K-9, a little girl, and the invisible thread that had drawn them together against impossible odds. The wind whispered through the trees again, carrying with it the faint, lingering sense of threat. Daniel's chest tightened. The intruder had fled, yes, but he was out there, watching, waiting. Rex's instincts would never let him forget. Emily's courage had not gone unnoticed, and the quiet yard was a fragile stage for the next chapter of what was coming. Emily stroked Rex's fur one last time, whispering, "Thank you for saving us. I promise we'll always look out for each other." Rex pressed his head against her shoulder, a silent vow that no danger, no matter how great, could break the bond they shared. Daniel stepped back, watching the pair, understanding fully that this was no ordinary friendship. This was a partnership, forged in danger, trust, and survival, a connection that would face whatever storms lay ahead. As the shadows lengthened and the last rays of sun vanished behind the trees, the world seemed to hold its breath. The immediate threat had passed, but a new chapter had begun. A child and a dog, united by courage, instinct, and trust, were ready to face the unknown. And somewhere, beyond the tree line, eyes watched, waiting for the right moment to strike, but they would not strike unchallenged, for Emily and Rex. The night was quiet, but the promise was clear. They were no longer ordinary, and anyone who dared threaten them would learn that courage, loyalty, and a bond forged in fire could never be broken. The yard grew darker, the wind whispered, and the city beyond continued its slow, unaware rhythm. But within that small fenced space, a little girl and a retired police dog had rewritten the rules of protection, and nothing would ever be the same again.